Hello everyone and welcome to the latest update for Popup Dungeon. Since the last update, we've developed the steampunk tile set, we've created a lot of new characters, and we've gotten a lot of cool new voices with some great voice actors. But this particular update is going to be all about what we're looking at right now, which is the campaign creation system. Now what we're looking at here is what the campaign creation system actually is going to create, which is a campaign. Now these sort of card-like nodes that open and close is one of the things you're going to create. This is a story node. So this can basically contain an image, a sound, which can be voiceover, it can be atmosphere, it can be just a sound effect. And of course it can contain story. So this is your most basic node, but we've got some other more interesting nodes as well. What we have here is a challenge node. Now here it's going to tell me the sort of difficulty and everything, and what's going to happen is sometimes going to be evident by the storytelling, but not necessarily. That's up to the creator. So then we get to actually roll die. This die is all going to be physics driven. Ooh, well, that was lucky. So I've now gotten my reward. Of course, if I would have failed, maybe it would have sprung a trap, or maybe I would have gotten no reward at all. And the reward here is going to be some equipment. Happy birthday. So here I'm just going to equip real quick. This is using the same equipping screen as within the run, so you should be very familiar with it. And now I go on to a level. Now this level here, the haunted house, was randomly selected. I've just set it to be random, but you could also create a branching path for different levels and everything. So now that we've seen more or less what some of the things that we have here, let's go ahead and look at how it is that we actually create this system. And one of the nice things about it is that it's not going to require any programming knowledge, and like everything else, it's just designed to be fast and easy to use. So I'm going to hop over to our graph. What I'm looking at here is a campaign. This is a game here, so I can create other campaigns, and basically this is how you're going to be able to link very long campaign-based games. But a campaign itself is basically usually just a run, though it can contain multiple runs because it can contain multiple starting points. So here we're looking at exactly what it was that I was doing. I created this is how you create a node. You can right click, you can use these hotkeys here. So I just created a story node. Let's just create another story node so we can see it. Click here. This is all, by the way, very customizable. You can organize all of this. So here you would name it something like alternate, and you're going to say whatever you wanted to say here. And here you would import your own image, whatever you want it to be, and you would import your own audio, whatever you want it to be. Again, this can be pretty much anything you can imagine, and you can do your own voiceover, so you can have voiced over stories. Now the next thing that was following this, and of course here I can just basically create a branch into the same thing, or I can just skip all of that and go into a level here, and there I go. So this here would have been just an alternative entry point. I can actually say skip the loot, and you can go straight into the level. You can of course delete nodes quite easily. And here we have what looks like a challenge, what is a challenge node. And I want to just cut real quick to show you what we want the UI to look like in a little bit. Of course, it's going to develop over time. It's not quite finished yet. But one thing that we're definitely going to do is we're going to want to show you what your node is going to look like once you've set the image and all of the text and everything. So this is just a mock-up. That part of the system isn't done yet, but I just wanted to show you that. But now what you can see here is you have from this node, which is a challenge, it has a success and a fail. The X is the fail and the arrow is the success. So I can do anything that I want here. I'm giving you loot, And here it's a trap. You know, here's the image for that. So some poisonous spiders jump out at you, and what it's going to do is actually set your starting health down. All of these are automatically balanced so that whenever you have a person that has been playing for a very long time or not, you can still give them a challenge that they can enjoy. Now you can also set these challenges as being static so that you can actually say, no, this is how difficult this whole run is, this whole encounter is, and you have to have been playing this game for 100 hours or so to even begin to challenge it. But so now what I was saying is, right now we have this level here, and I can create another level, and I can use the hotkeys as well to create them. What I can do with these levels here is I can set all kinds of encounter sizes, the number of encounters, the size of the actual level. Pretty much anything that you can imagine can be done here. You can also set the randoms to choose from just dungeon, for instance, by setting the category, or you can go ahead and set it to just be random to anything if you don't choose that category, or even go to an individual level and be very, very specific. Say that you wanted to do the dungeon library. So you would set that, and now this node here would be a dungeon library. You can label it accordingly and go from there. Now there's a lot of different ways that you can go about connecting these things. There's no right or wrong, but let's just say that I was going to create another, let's say another story. And here I would connect to this story. And from here I can also connect using a hotkey. I can automatically connect to all of these nodes. So these nodes would not be random, as in these three nodes would appear. This one would be random, this one would be a library, this one would be random as well. I can change that, set it to, for instance, like a boss instead of go to very hard or just hard. And then the number of encounters down to 1. The encounter will be a boss. And so now we have a random boss encounter here. We'll name that one boss. You can do a bunch of things, but most importantly, what you can do here is before these nodes, you can set all of these things. So rewards, punishments, and modifications. So your modification, you're going to be able to basically add all kinds of things, making it hardcore, changing the loot, changing the encounters that will show up, all these kinds of things. You've got a lot of control there. So now what I'd like to show as well is that we can, and this is something interesting over here as well. We'll bring this over here and we'll use the layout feature. So we have a feature here that I'm just going to scramble this up so that it's good and dirty. And then I just press Shift L and it's all laid out for me. So that's kind of a nice feature. Now what I have down here is basically a completely different game that I wanted to show you. First off, before I jump into that, let me just tell you real briefly about the dialogue node. The dialogue node will work pretty much like you'd expect it. Instead of having to have your dialogue spread across a whole bunch of nodes, you can include it in just one node with a list of both the sound cues and the text, and also the characters that are going to be speaking, so that you can just compress that. It's not going to make a huge mess every time that you have to create dialogue. You've got 10 nodes. And what you saw there, by the way, was just a mock-up. We're still working on that system as well. Another thing that you can do with nodes is you can group them into these sort of subgraphs. So here I've just clicked through the subgraph. I'm just going to make my window bigger here so you can see it. And what we've got here is just some of the other things that you can do with this game. So you can create, of course, your own tactical roguelike RPG. That's not an issue. But you can also create your own, choose your own adventure games that doesn't even have to include combat. And here I've created a little quiz, a trivia game So you can have this as a little subgraph that you can just drop into any of your campaigns, and they can have all kinds of rewards. Here, what we're doing is we're asking a question, and we can go and see this on the table here in a second. And then we provide multiple choice. Whether they get it right or wrong, we're going to add or subtract points. And we tell them that it was wrong or right, and then we progress out of this graph into the next one. I can also flatten it so you can see it. There it is, flattened out, and I'm going to just group it back up. And there it is. And now let's just go over and see what that looks like on the table. So here we are back in the game. Now I had actually put it under this feast here, so we'll just click through that. And what we have here is our question. So the question is, what is a chimazine? And then we have 3 answers. One of them is a child's limousine. The next one is a medical condition. It says, I'd like to hang out, but my chimazine is flaring up. And the last one is a cat who is long and gray. So let's say it's a child. Let's just try. This is the only thing that seems to make sense to me is it's a children's limousine, a chimazine. Well, no, that was wrong. It's actually our cat, but you wouldn't have known that. So that's not very good game design. But that's just some of the silliness that you can get into with this game quite quickly. Now, as you'll notice here, is we've just been left here on the table after we've been told that we were wrong, and it says -1 point. Now, I had written -1 point, but this is very important to note that in the bottom left-hand corner, we're going to have an inventory type system where you're going to be able to control flags. So these flags can be anything from keys to special items to faction. In fact, the game will include just sort of a faction that goes up or down based on your actions. And it can just be points. It can be health points, anything you want. So as you create your own game types within these things, within this system, you can manipulate that flag system, get real fancy, and create some very interesting things. So what does this all add up to? Before we jump into that, we've got to discuss the crowdsource development potential of this system. All of these images, all of these sounds, and of course even the enemy packs, the parties, all of this can be created by somebody else, and then you can just basically co-opt it into your own game. You can subscribe to that content, so that basically what's going to happen then is that somebody can be continuing to develop a party. Somebody's in charge of creating the enemies, somebody's in charge of creating the parties, somebody's putting it all together here, somebody's creating these challenges which can become very robust. For instance, our treasure chest challenge is going to be grouped up so that, as I showed you before, these kinds of things here where you just group them up. These challenges here will actually be able to be something that you can export and they don't just have to be challenges. Any groups like this, these subgraphs can be grouped up and exported as well. So you can have these really robust things using some of these more advanced features like our randoms, so that it'll pick through here. And I can say, you know, here's the treasure chest, the treasure chest in the dungeon, or whatever it might be. And you just pop that in, and it can be anything from a very simple lock-picking scenario that we were just running into, or it could be that it turns out to be a mimic, and you're immediately put into a level with a boss that's a mimic. You could have your warrior try to bash it open instead, and you know, maybe you're going to get some equipment that's been banged up if he's successful, or he completely destroys it if he's unsuccessful. But it can be pretty much anything, and this can be exported. So this is another feature that somebody else can be working on while you work on your, you know, overarching story. So what that all leads up to is basically being able to crowdsource development. And it doesn't even have to be development that everyone is cooperating on a forum or anything. It's just this sort of organic, Crowdsource Development, and you can always break these bindings. Basically, you don't have to subscribe and keep the subscription, so that if somebody changes something that's very pivotal to your campaign, it's not going to break your campaign. You can always just sort of break the on there. But what's nice is if somebody's developing a very rich set of equipment, party, enemies, these are things that are going to be updated in your game automatically. So you're basically creating content together without much communication. Again, this is all possible because everything is automatically going to be balanced for you as much as possible, from the atomic level, from the ability, all the way up to the run. So this lets people basically crowdsource develop with minimal communication in a way that's, kind of novel. And that's pretty much the overview for this system. As you can see, there's a lot of things to do with this system. It's all very, user friendly. You've got these auto layouts. You've got the grouping and the flattening. You've got all kinds of neat little toys here that you can play with. And this is just the very beginning of the system. We're going to continue developing the system as we move towards launch. Basically, what I wanted to make sure that everyone sees here is that it can do more than just create a level flow. It can also not just do story, but it can actually lead to creating completely new games. And I'm actually very excited to see what sort of crazy sort of games people are going to create with this system, and just how much they're going to push it, because it can be pushed to a point where the games that you create are sort of board games, but they're very unlike Popup Dungeon. And then you can, of course, very easily create games that are very much like Popup Dungeon, but with extreme customization. So that's it for today, and thanks for joining us.